Hey, what's up, guys? Leaf Green Goblin here. Yeah, I'm kind of in between places right now. That's why I got these blank walls, and I don't know, my decor is all over the place. This video, I kind of want to just talk about I kind of want to make a series about collecting tips for beginners and maybe intermediate people. I feel like, the advanced or the people who've been here forever, I don't know if these videos are for them, but maybe they find me entertaining. I don't know. The first thing I want to talk about is to collect your favorite Pokemon instead of sets when you're starting out. A lot of people, because their taste isn't really as defined when they first enter Pokemon, they kind of really like a lot of stuff. They're like, oh, well, I want to collect this whole set. And then they realize, especially with these newer sets and how big they are, they notice they can get really expensive. And, well, I respect people who can appreciate commons and uncommons, the arts, and I have those kind of binders too, at least artist binders where I have commons and uncommons. A lot of that stuff can be sometimes in a way fluff, where you have a couple of secret rares, that you really want, full arts, maybe a couple rares here or there, and then the rest of it you're kind of just scrambling, TCG player, even a 50-cent card has like $2 shipping sometimes, that kind of stuff. It can really add up. And, excuse me, if you can at least, I feel like narrowing down which Pokemon you like the most or more is easier than kind of narrowing down which sets you like, because there's so many cards in the set. So an example I can say about kind of narrowing down which Pokemon you like and how you can at least use, kind of put a financial aspect to that or value is, for example, I am a big fan of Suicune and I love Snorlax. However, the prices for collecting Snorlax and Suicune cards, all of them, that can get pretty pricey. Even in like a light played, raw condition, that can get really expensive. So while I do love those those Pokemon, I do love Hydreigon, for example, a lot more. And to collect every single Hydreigon, aside from the black and white secret rare, which I have, I think it's, what is it? Next Destinies. Aside from the Next Destinies card, you can really pick up all of those in near mint condition for $50. And you can get like 15 cards. So compared to Snorlax and Suicune, which, I love those Pokemon. I have I should have worn it. But I have a Snorlax crew neck, and I have some Snorlax plushes and stuff, but just the cost of paying that much for those cards, for that Pokemon, I will go for something like, I can go and get multiple complete sets of every Hippowdon, Aggron, I love those Pokemon, Armaldo as well. Those, or even, I guess if we're going out expensive, Giratina. I'm going to collect all of Giratina cards before I collect every Snorlax, Suicune, Rayquaza type arts or cards. The next thing I want to think about is you want to narrow down your condition, I guess, parameters. Because if you just start collecting here and there, everywhere in terms of condition, down the line, you might be kind of, I guess, befuddled, confused with what to do, or you might start hating part of your collection. What do I mean by that? If you start collecting a lot of matched played, heavy played cards to save money, down the line you might be like, wow, well, I kind of like grading. I can't really send any of these in for grading. Now I just have these cards. I kind of want the better version of the cards. But I don't really want to sell these, I don't really want to get into selling either. And on the contrary, let's say you want the cleanest of cards, and then, PSA 10 or bust. And then a couple years later, you're like, oh man, I kind of got these for the investment aspect of it. The cards haven't gone up in price. I saw my friend, or I went to a Collecticon or convention and saw some CGC 9s or PSA 9s, PSA 8s, and I kind of realized that now I finally realize that the differences in condition is actually, I find that negligible. If you can narrow that down and kind of just understand, or figure out early, I only want nice cards. I want the mintiest of the mint. I only want You know, I don't care if there's any creases in my card. Scratches on the hollow, you know, as long as they're not really deep, doesn't matter to me. If you can get that out of the way sooner rather than later, it's going to help you at least, you know, when you're looking at cards, your search filters can be a lot easier rather than looking through a bunch of cards, heavy play, you know, damage, all this, because you just want the card. And, you know, that's about it for that. You know, I guess if I can really just leave a last point on that is, while it might seem a little, you know, kind of like, well, you know, why can't I just find out as I go along? Well, that should always be, you know, I feel like that should always be the obvious, is that no matter what kind of plan you try to set up for your collection before you start or as you start collecting, you're going to learn things that you never were going to prepare for or never thought you would care about down the line. But kind of just, you know, putting another extra lens on it, on certain things, or kind of analyzing, you know, kind of being a nerd about certain little things and already a nerdy hobby, it'll help you down the line. Next thing I wanted to talk about is, how can you measure your nostalgia, and how much does nostalgia impact your collection? If the best way I could say this, you know, if I could form this into a question is, if the world was going to burn tomorrow, which cards are you burning first? So I think we all, to some extent, whether we just started out now or we started 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we have a certain series, sets, eras, Pokemon, secret rare, whatever, of arts that we gravitate towards. And while I did say in my first video that, you know, if you're having FOMO collecting a certain era, you should kind of branch out a little, explore other cards and stuff. At the same time, don't forget what brought you to the first set or the first era of cards in the first place. You know, don't get lost in the sauce here. And, you know, you bought a couple of full arts or whatever, and now there's this one full art that you really want to get, but it's super expensive. So instead of just saving up to get that card, you go and buy 50 different cards, 50 different $2, $3 cards, or, you know, a couple $30 cards from different eras, and, you know, you just saw and you got really excited, and then you have a bunch of these half-collected sets, a bunch of these half-collected eras. And then, you know, let's say, you know, God forbid, you fall on some hard times, or you just need some money fast. And guess what's the first thing to go? Those cards that you're like, well, why the hell did I start collecting those in the first place? Oh yeah, started collecting them just because I didn't have the money to collect something else. Don't forget where you came from. It's okay to not have a lot of nostalgia if you're starting out new. You know, if you're a brand new collector, go look at some older stuff. You know, there's no, you know, you don't need to always be in the now and with the hype, with the trends. But at the same time, if you've been collecting for years and years, just try to understand, you know, ask yourself, why do I gravitate to these cards, these older cards? You know, why do I feel nostalgia? Is it just because I had these as a kid? Is it possible that in a couple years after I learn more about cards, I'm not going to care about these cards, or not care about them as much? I guess just some things to think about. And then another thing I want to think about, you know, I have some of these written down because last time I was just kind of blabbering on. But you always want to start small. This is, you know, these last 2 points here, I'm going to start getting a little pretty vague here. It's just, don't go out, you know, even if it's just a week, a month, couple months, even a year, you know, I'm not saying take a break, but always start small in your collecting. Whether you're starting in a new era, whether you're starting in, you know, you're collecting promos, you're getting into graded cards now, always start with a 1 or 2 of cards that you think you would really like, regardless if it was in a slab or not, regardless if it was in, you know, a modern set. Maybe you go into vintage, you're like, oh, just start small. I don't really think there's too much I can analyze on that. You know, besides just losing an identity in your collection, because I believe, you know, sometimes I feel like that, personally, I believe that happens more down the line than beginner collectors. I think as a beginner collector, it's perfectly fine to be jumping around and trying new different, you know, looking at different eras, different secret rarities, whatnot. It's more so when you're collection matures, you realize that maybe, you know, it's kind of all over the place. So when you're starting small, I would be more worried about getting too much of stuff that you kind of like, rather than getting one or two expensive things that you really like from a new set. Because you might find in time that, you know, it could only be a couple months where you realize, man, you know what, I kind of want to sell these, and I want to go back to the stuff that made me nostalgic. Or, oh man, selling Pokemon cards, you know, it's harder than I thought. It takes longer than I thought because I don't have a following on social media or, you know, a reputable eBay store. So now I'm kind of just sitting on a bunch of these expensive cards I only kind of care about, and I got a lot of them, you know? So it's, if you just have a couple of them, more cards, more problems, okay? I know that's tough for some people to say. The more cards you have, you might run into some more problems, especially more high-end, rarer cards. More money, more problems. Sometimes more cards, more problems. The last thing, kind of to tie it all together, is just be patient. If you can find the time to just do your own research, watch some content creators, go to some conventions, buy Pokemon related stuff maybe that isn't, you know, $200 cards. The more patient you become, the more appreciative you'll be of certain arts, the more your taste will develop, as I said in my previous video, and the more you will gain to appreciate the cards that you have right now, and kind of form a whole hierarchy in your head on which cards you really want to go hard on, which cards you only kind of care about, which eras can you learn to appreciate, but that doesn't mean you're going to go buy all those cards. So that, you know, that kind of really sums up everything I wanted to say in this video. If you guys have any comments, please drop them down below. If you think I have potential to be on this space, please like and subscribe. I hope I can be a part of your Pokemon content creator pool. But if not, I will continue to talk to myself in my room. Peace out, guys.